the big commercial banks and potentially, the financial arm of the US government think they can use Bitcoin for something that benefits them. Bitcoin's supposed to be ideal money, right? And a tool of financial freedom. And if we let the people that have run this insane monetary casino for decades use Bitcoin for their ends, Bitcoin will cease to be that. Period. Some people are naive about how far these people will go, but you should not be. Like, these are people that do not want to cede their power to anybody, and they're very accustomed to stealing from us. And they don't plan to stop stealing.
Whitney Webb begins by highlighting the growing interest of big commercial banks and the financial arms of the U.S. government in Bitcoin. She points out that this interest is not benign. Instead, these institutions see Bitcoin as a tool they can manipulate to their advantage. This stance is evident from the U.S. government's distinct approach to Bitcoin compared to other cryptocurrencies. Gary Gensler, the SEC chair, has labeled Bitcoin as a commodity, whereas other cryptocurrencies are considered securities. This differentiation is significant and suggests that Bitcoin has a unique status that the financial elite intend to exploit. Webb emphasizes the irony and potential danger in this development. Bitcoin was originally conceived as a tool for financial freedom, a response to the 2008 financial crisis and the irresponsible behavior of central and commercial banks. The vision was to create a decentralized currency that could operate outside the influence of traditional financial systems. However, the prospect of these same institutions using Bitcoin to perpetuate their control poses a fundamental contradiction. If Bitcoin is co-opted by these entities, it risks losing its essence as a tool for financial emancipation.
I certainly think that the big commercial banks and potentially, the financial arm of the US government think they can use Bitcoin for something that benefits them. Just to, before I go any further, I think it's pretty clear to everyone that there's a big differentiation, even from the US government's perspective, between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, right? Gary Gensler of the SEC refers to Bitcoin as a commodity, but every other cryptocurrency is a security from the SEC's perspective. That's pretty significant. So seeing Bitcoin as like this commodity from the SEC's perspective, the only commodity in the digital currency space, they obviously want to use that to their benefit if they can. And it seems like they probably can and will. Yeah. So the conflict here, as I see it, is why was Bitcoin originally made? From what's been portrayed, right? It was created as a tool of financial freedom, to prevent fiscal irresponsibility on the part of central banks and also commercial banks as a response to things like the 2008 financial crisis. Okay. So what happens when the same powers that Bitcoin was created to thwart start using it to continue their bad behavior? Is it still a tool for financial freedom then, or has it become a tool of the same people it was created to fight against? This is a real discussion that needs to happen in the Bitcoin space. It is happening to a degree, arguably not enough. I think a lot of people, can get kind of googly-eyed thinking like, oh, wow, what if Bitcoin goes above $200,000? And all of this stuff, like, okay, well, it's great that you might have, a higher net worth, but in a lot of the cases where like Bitcoin would be projected to reach astronomical sums, that means like the dollar and like other currencies widely in use become like insanely devalued. So like, okay, if a loaf of bread is worth like $300 because like helicopter money in the US has happened and it's like hyperinflation, and you have Bitcoin, like you might have like a lot of, it looks like you have a lot of money in your account, but in terms of purchasing power, like you basically have the same lifestyle you have now, but everyone else around you is dirt poor and has nothing. Like, is that a scenario to be like cheered on? I don't think so. Bitcoin's supposed to be ideal money, right? And a tool of financial freedom. And if we let the people that have run this insane monetary casino for decades use Bitcoin for their ends, Bitcoin will cease to be that. period. I also think there's a side effort too, and I think it's very obvious, or should be very obvious to people in the space, to criminalize privacy enhancing tools for Bitcoin transactions. They want Bitcoin transactions, those that they allow to happen, to be completely surveillable. They don't want financial privacy, which is part of this push for bank issued stable coins and deposit tokens and CBDCs, is all about knowing everything about the flow of money. How the public spends their money. They don't want you to spend $1 and them not know about it, So, that's essentially where it's headed. And to use Bitcoin, they want it to go in that direction as well. So, it's very likely, like, in the event that, like, the dollar hyperinflates, like, people have made the case that, like, maybe Bitcoin will be used as a reserve asset to keep the dollar from completely imploding, like if the U.S. is going to default on its debt, and we're like, what, at like 34 trillion now? It's like completely insane. And it's not like going to be addressed, the debt problem. So obviously it will explode at some point. So, people have to be very cognizant of like these efforts to use Bitcoin for ends that are like not good in terms of like the original ethos of Bitcoin. So people kind of have in my opinion, have to pick a side here about like, are you going to fight to keep Bitcoin a tool for financial freedom for everybody, and to keep it being like ideal money to as a hedge against central bank and commercial bank malfeasance? Or are you going to let those same central and commercial banks use it for their ends and incorporate it into their system of complete financial control? I think it's very easy to choose what side to be on there. But some people, again, are like, ooh, the prospect of being a millionaire sounds great. But like, if you to maintain the lifestyle you have now in a hyperinflation scenario costs $1 million, that's not great either. And, if all your transactions are surveillable and all of the stuff, maybe you have more money, but like, the system they're trying to like usher in, commit a thought crime, and the DOJ will just come and seize all your Bitcoin like they do to tons of people, there's certain stuff we have to stand against, or it gets bad for everybody. It doesn't matter how much Bitcoin you hold.
Webb calls for vigilance within the Bitcoin community to prevent the co-option of Bitcoin by powerful financial interests. She urges Bitcoin enthusiasts to choose sides in the ongoing battle. Will Bitcoin remain a tool for financial freedom, or will it become a cog in the existing system of financial control? This choice is crucial, as the latter would strip Bitcoin of its revolutionary potential and turn it into another instrument of the financial elite. She points to recent developments, such as the actions of the Department of Justice DOJ against major crypto exchanges like Binance, as evidence of the systematic effort to control Bitcoin. The DOJ's intense scrutiny and surveillance of Binance transactions, along with the custodianship by FinCEN, exemplify how regulatory bodies are tightening their grip on crypto infrastructure. Such measures are not just about compliance. They are about gaining control over the flow of cryptocurrency and, by extension, its users.
To an extent, but you have to keep in mind too that there's major efforts to like co-opt all the on and off ramps in Bitcoin. So like even in that scenario, like if you have a lot of Bitcoin, but like you can't use it or exchange it for legal tender, you'd only be able to like use it with other people that have Bitcoin, right? And so like there's a potential for that to emerge at some point, probably in certain scenarios. But as it is right now, there's an unprecedented effort by like the DOJ specifically to get like major crypto exchanges under its thumb by making them, the Binance thing is a good example, right? So like looking at Binance, what's happened since
I was going to ask you about that.
An insane amount of staff from the Department of Justice are surveilling every transaction that goes through Binance right now. And FinCEN has custodianship of the exchange for the next 5 years. They have all access to all of Binance's data, not just from the settlement forward, but all of their past data. So they can retroactively go and flag transactions, and the DOJ can be like, we're going to seize that wallet for X amount of Bitcoin and add it to, the DOJ's massive Bitcoin holdings, which are among the biggest in the world. right? So you control all of these on and off ramps and surveil all of that. Like that is a major problem.
Yeah.
And I think people have to be really aware of this like big push to end online anonymity and financial anonymity, or like just privacy that I've been talking about for a long time. So like, obviously like Bitcoin has potential to be something, but if we let these people control the on and off ramps and like other major aspects of infrastructure, like maybe Bitcoin itself is immutable, but they plan to do everything in their power to prevent it from being something that takes a big chunk of their power away. And I think people have to be like, I mean, some people are naive about how far these people will go, but you should not be. Like, these are people that do not want to cede their power to anybody. And they're very accustomed to stealing from us. And they don't plan to stop stealing, So, I mean, people need to be really aware of that and, and fight to keep Bitcoin to be something that is empowering and a tool for freedom and financial freedom. Because, if enough people get too googly-eyed about the value going up and, pumper bags and all of this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of damage could be done. And, I mean, I wish I had more like positive stuff to say about it, but I mean, it's not like the battle is lost. Like, I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is people need to be really aware that there are major efforts to co-opt. Like, maybe there's aspects of it, sure, that like can't be co-opted, but in a practical sense, like for regular people, it can be co-opted. Yeah. And there's when you have groups like BlackRock and all this stuff trying to get in on it, that should be a red flag that like they think they can co-opt it,
Webb highlights the broader implications of this trend, including the erosion of online anonymity and financial privacy. If Bitcoin transactions become fully surveilled, the dream of a decentralized, anonymous financial system could be lost. This would pave the way for a dystopian future where financial freedom is an illusion, and every transaction is monitored and controlled by central authorities. Despite the grim prospects, Webb maintains that the battle is not yet lost. She calls on the Bitcoin community to remain vigilant and proactive in safeguarding Bitcoin's principles. The involvement of major financial players like BlackRock in the Bitcoin space should serve as a red flag. These entities see potential in Bitcoin not for its liberating aspects, but for how it can be incorporated into their existing power structures. Please like and subscribe my channel.